All right, good afternoon, everyone. All right, happy Friday. How's this week going for you guys? Awesome, glad to hear it. Well, we have a special treat to wrap up week one with a very special seminar this afternoon. But before I introduce our speaker, I actually wanted to just quickly introduce myself. I haven't had a chance to meet all of the teams yet. So my name is Chelsea Curran, and I am the new Deputy Director for BWSI. I'm brand new to this role, so I have the privilege of learning about and experiencing the transformational nature of BWSI Summer Institute alongside all of you. Like many of my Lincoln Laboratory colleagues, I also wear another hat that I have a separate job at the laboratory. So at Lincoln Lab, I also work in the technology office, where I help oversee the laboratory's technology strategy for fundamental research and help foster collaborations with academic institutions, such as with faculty right here at MIT. Now, speaking of wearing multiple hats, that's certainly true of our speaker today. We're very fortunate to have Major Morgan Mitchell join us this afternoon. She is an Air Force officer, a private pilot, and the president of Pre-Flight's Aviation Camp, which is a nonprofit that helps youth discover aviation and STEM. She has over a decade of experience in the Air Force and recently returned from a DARPA fellowship. And we're really excited for her to tell us about her career journey and her experiences in working in technology integration and transition in the government and in the military. So let's give her a very warm welcome.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me here. Does anyone have family in the military? Raise your hand. Family in the military? Has anyone thought about joining the military in the future? Yeah, awesome. Air Force? Air Force? Yeah, Air Force. Okay, so this is just kind of a chance to see what my path has been, a little bit of technology integration sprinkled in there, kind of what that looks like in the DOW, DOD, whatever you want to call it now, and just kind of how I've seen that throughout my time. So, you know, whether you want to join the military or not, hopefully it pulls back the curtain a little bit on what we do in the DOD, what we care about, why we do that, why it's so hard to do that in the DOD and DOW. I mean, it's hard to do that anywhere, to innovate and do technology transition and prototyping. Yeah, this is just a little bit of what my experience has been. So don't be afraid to raise your hand if you have a question in the middle of the presentation. You don't have to wait till the end if you have like this burning question. I don't want you to wait until the very end. But yeah, I'll definitely leave time at the end for questions. Okay, yeah, so let's see. Clicker. Of course it's not working. That's okay. That's all right. Okay. So this is just a quick overview. I know it's a lot of information. Don't feel like you have to read everything, and so I'll go through kind of each one. But this is just a quick overview of what my path has been. So 14 years in the Air Force. Most people have one career field in the military. They join the military, they have one career field, they do that for 20 years, and then they retire. I've had 3 career fields in the Air Force, which is a little weird, a little different, and there's been various reasons for that. But I think it's actually been really beneficial to my experience and how I can apply that to future experiences. So that's just kind of something that I find that works really well for me. And hopefully maybe a lesson for you to take. I think being a specialist and specializing in one thing can be really great because you know what you're doing, that's your jam, and you can potentially take that really far away. But I think to be able to see the connections between different fields, different applications, it's really important to broaden those horizons. And I think that's really cool based on what a lot of you guys are doing in your classes. I mean, like textiles, like that's pretty cool, right? I mean, that's something that you don't think about when you think about tech, right? So I just think that's one of the biggest kind of lessons learned for me. But so I got my bachelor's degree in astrophysics, master's in material science engineering. I knew I wanted to be an astronaut. I always wanted to be an astronaut, but I didn't have anybody to talk to about like, what do I do to be an astronaut? So, you know, at the time, the internet was newish. I'm totally dating myself. And I think I looked up like, oh, what are some bios for the astronauts? And I saw that they all had like master's degree in astrophysics and engineering. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go do that. No plan whatsoever other than that, right? So went and got my degree in astrophysics, master's degree. And then I was like, okay, well, I also see that they have military experience, so maybe I should go do that, right? Again, no plan, just kind of piecing this together. Went and got my pilot's license because I saw that would make me much more competitive to get an Air Force pilot slot. And then I walked into a recruiter's office and said, I want to be a pilot in the Air Force. So that's one path you can take. You can go through officer training school, so that's what I did. You can also go through ROTC, which you guys are probably aware of. So that's the college program where you graduate with a commission once you're done. Or you could just go to the academy, right? So the U.S. Air Force Academy, that's college and military training in one for long years. And then you graduate and go off and you're an officer and you do whatever career field you've been chosen to do. So I did officer training school. That's just a 3-month program. They call it a pressure cooker officer. So 3 months, ding, you're done. And I went off to pilot training. After that, I did, because of various personal trouble that I had, like family trouble that I failed out of pilot training. So that's another lesson, like how do you get through a failure like that and keep moving? I did missile training, was a missile officer, and then I went to the Pentagon and did some things in operations analysis. So let's dig into each one of those just a little bit. That was kind of a like quick round robin of my experiences. Okay, so does anyone want to be a pilot or has taken? Yeah? Yeah? It's really fun. You don't have to be a pilot in the Air Force, right? You could just go down to your local flight school and say, hey, I want a discovery flight, and it's gonna cost you money. That's usually the main barrier to doing pilot training. But you can go down and get a discovery flight and see if you like it, and then you kind of keep moving from there. You can get your pilot's license and just fly for fun. You can also, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, you can get your drone license even earlier. And it's just kind of like a fun hobby. It's an expensive hobby, but there are scholarships and everything that you can look for, so it's definitely not out of reach or not anything crazy. I think a lot of people, especially when you're young, you don't even think that that's an option, that you can just go down to a flight school and say, hey, I want a discovery flight. And so that's just a really neat thing to be able to say that you can do. And I think it challenges you in different ways, and challenges how you can react to situations, how you can memorize information, how you can quickly, I guess, work through all of the information you need to be a pilot in command. Because obviously you need to know like systems in case of emergencies, you need to know all the aircraft procedures, you need to know all the procedures for flying through airspace, and I think it's just a great way to challenge yourself. So I did that. That's me in the T6, that big guy. Yeah, the screen's a little funky. But that's the T6. That's what you start out training in the Air Force. That's a really fun plane. It's called a turboprop. And it's just because it has a propeller on the front. But it's kind of like taken to the max. Like it's a lot more powerful than like a Cessna, right? And then I did well in this stage. I did well enough to earn a slot in the T-38 training program. So the T-38 training program is training you to be a single-seat pilot. If you do well in that, you will, that's the fighter pilot route. So you'll fly an F-16 or an F-22, F-35 now, right? So I flew this I got about 50 hours in the T-38. And then I put this here because this is the cool new version of the T-38. It's called like the new red tail. It's called the T-7. So they have a new version of this. The joke was that these were so old. These were from the 60s, I think, the T-38s. And if you looked at them straight on, you would see them like curved, like wobbled, right? Because they used to do supersonic training in them, like you would exceed the speed of sound in them. And of course, it's a trainer, and so students would do all kinds of wacky stuff with them, and they were from the 60s. So it's high time for them to be replaced, hopefully with the T-7. So they're rolling out the T-7 right now. So if anybody goes to the Air Force and does pilot training, hopefully you get to fly the T-7. It's a blast. You get to do loops in the sky at 500 knots, all kinds of stuff that you can come up with. It's really, really fun. Okay, so like I said, I had a hard time in my life. I got through T-38s, and about a month before graduation, I started failing flights. I just couldn't focus. I should have told my flight commander, hey, I'm not doing so well. I need to take like a week off and like figure it out and refocus myself, especially when you're talking about flying, right? Pilots have a checklist that's basically goes through all these ways. Are you ready to fly mentally and physically? And I probably wasn't mentally ready to fly. But I kept flying because you're in the program and oh gosh, you're expected to do amazing things. And I just started failing flights. So I failed flights. It only takes 3 failed flights to fail out of pilot training. I was out within a week. So I was a month before graduating, number 2 in my class of 30, about to drop an F-22, and I was gone. So I lost that pilot slot. So what do you do next? Well, the Air Force is kind enough to give you a new job, whether you like it or not. So I got to go underground instead of in the air. So I got to be an ICBM nuclear missile officer. Has anyone ever heard of the Minuteman III? Yeah, kind of. Minuteman III. A lot of people don't like to talk about nukes, but I think after going through that experience, you realize that they're there as a deterrent. Like, they're not there as a weapon. I mean, if we have to, it is there as a weapon. They are there as a deterrent to keep other people from attacking us. And you can argue that they've been pretty effective, as we haven't had any major operations for, since the 60s. So what I did is, if you can kind of see up here, here's a map. There's 3 major nuclear bases, nuclear missile bases. There's one in Montana, there's one in Minot, and there's one in Wyoming. And so a lot of people, even the people that live there, have no idea that there's about 150 nuclear missiles under their soil, all spread out. And this is all unclassified. You can look it up online. Everybody knows they're there. And so I would go under here, if you can see that. It's a launch control center. I would go under here. I would control about 10 of these launch facilities with a nuclear missile inside. And we would monitor maintenance. We would make sure everything's looking good. And at the end of the day, you're there to turn keys if, God forbid, you had to turn keys due to a presidential directive to launch ICBMs. God forbid. So, that was completely different. Not why I joined the Air Force. But I think who else could say that they commanded a field of nuclear missiles, right? Like, not that many people. And I think it teaches you a lesson in how to succeed in something that you didn't pick, how to succeed in something that maybe you don't like, but pick out what you can from that experience and succeed in that. And learn from it what you can. So I told the Air Force, I said, hey, this has been great. I did 3 years as a nuclear missile officer. It's been great. Not really what I want to do. I have a STEM degree. Can I go do something else? So I got career field number 3. I got to go do operations research. So are you laughing because you know this picture? Okay, good. So I do not have to explain it to you. So this is, for anybody that doesn't know, This is the origin story for operations research in the Army at the time. So all these planes were coming back with bullet holes on them, and they all said, oh my gosh, we need to reinforce them where there's bullet holes. And the smart operations researcher officer in the room said, hold on, you're missing a key data set, and those are the planes that did not return. So we need to reinforce the planes where we do not see bullet holes, right? And so that's the origin story for operations research, operations analysis, and that is the career field that I'm in right now. So how I see it is, so I did work at the Pentagon, informing senior leaders on any like policy changes that they wanted to make. If they had questions about like how many F-22s should we buy, there's analysis that goes behind that, and it's all very deliberate. There's analysis that goes into personnel management. How many people should we promote this year? How many people do we need to bring in the force? I mean, hopefully it gives you a warm and fuzzy that there's smart people doing that analysis to figure out what we should do, and it's not just warm and fuzzy feelings. At least if they listen to us, it's not warm and fuzzy feelings. So yeah, I mean, you know, I did like a dashboard, right? That's sometimes all it is just displaying data. You know, that's another lesson learned. Sometimes you don't even have to do the smartest thing that anyone's ever seen. Sometimes you just have to display data, and it like opens up a whole new world for people. Or if you display it in the right way, not misleadingly, but display it in the right way to provide people with insights, that can be really powerful, right? I mean, I think you guys are talking about advanced technology and everybody talks about AI, but at the end of the day, it's still people making decisions and trying to interact with this technology. So if you can help the people make good decisions, then you've won. I added this little picture here because a lot of people in my career field, they do like wargaming. So again, they'll put forward a scenario, I don't know, you know, an unclassified scenario like, okay, country A is attacking country B. Country A has these assets or these weapon systems. How would country B defend that? And so a lot of operations researchers help lay out those war games and figure out which decisions lead to victory and which decisions don't. Yeah, so that was really interesting. I really liked that. Kind of like what I've already said, it was good to see that senior leaders listened to my analysis, and that affected the force. And I felt like I was doing good things for the Air Force, you know, like supporting the decisions they were making with real information and real analysis. And so I think at the time I was like maybe a lieutenant still, maybe pinning on captain soon. And just being that young and having these generals listen to what you have to say was pretty cool. Okay, so then I combined my time in missiles and my new operations research hat to do ICBM test launch. So if you don't know, we launch about 3 or 4 unarmed Minuteman IIIs from Vandenberg every year, and we launch them out to the Kwajalein Atoll over here in the Marshall Islands. So we launch them from Vandenberg, California, and we launch them out here, and we basically see, did we hit the target? That's kind of cool. I mean, the Minuteman IIIs are also from the 60s. I feel like I'm talking about a lot of, I don't know if you're seeing a pattern, the Air Force is aging out on a lot of their systems. But the Minuteman III is from the 60s, and so to assure our allies and to continue to deter our enemies, we need to prove that they will still launch if we wanted them to launch. Because they're so old, somebody could make the assumption, well, I'm going to take a shot at the US because I don't think they can launch those Minuteman IIIs. I think they're too old, and they'll never make it out of the hole. So we take them to California, we put them in a hole, and we launch them, and we hit the target, which is pretty cool. So as an operations analyst, I looked at all of the data coming off of the missile, and if there was any anomalies, we would try to do root cause analysis and figure out what went wrong or what didn't go perfectly, what we were expecting. All right. All right, and then, so this is the other cool thing about the military, and I think the Air Force in particular. Sorry, was there a question? No? Okay. You're just wondering. The Air Force in particular gives you a lot of opportunity to do fellowships, education opportunities. They're really big on developing their force. They're really big on having an intelligent set of officers. They don't just want you there to follow orders. They want you to actually intelligently think about what you're doing. They want you to intelligently think about the art of war, whatever that means, or the art of national defense. And so they send you out to some of these cool fellowships or education opportunities. And the Blue Horizons Fellowship was one thing that I got to do. It's a master's degree program where you get a master's in technology integration for like national security. So what that means is that I was given $500,000 in seed money, and you're taught and trained how to be an entrepreneur within the DOW. So you're taught how to pitch. You pitch what problem you want to solve. You pitch what you want to prototype. That's accepted by like a board of directors, and you're given this money, and if you need more money to execute that prototype, it's your job to go out and find that money within the DOW, which is not an easy task at all. So usually money is given by Congress, and then it's doled out on 5-year timelines. And if you didn't ask Congress for that money and you're not on that 5-year timeline, you really have to know where to look to find those pockets of money. So it's not easy. And then your job is to prototype the solution to whatever problem you identified. And you have about 5 months to do that, and you present it directly to the top leadership of the Air Force. And sometimes they'll take that prototype and they'll say, I think we should do this, and they'll give it to, an actual program office to go out and execute whatever you prototyped. So an example is one team showed that they could grow runways using the same material that loggers use to put down dust. So if we're trying to execute an operation in the Pacific, for example, there's not a lot of land out there, and there's not a lot of runways, and so how do we create runways on some of these islands out in the Pacific? The one team found a whiskey distillery in Brooklyn and figured out if they tweaked one ingredient, they could create jet fuel, and they put it into like this little tiny, it was like a T-38, but like a little tiny version of it, like something that just runs on jet fuel. And it was like a little tiny one, and they put it in this little tiny jet and took it off from a runway and showed that it would work. It's kind of cool. Someone else, this might seem like old news, but this was like 4 or 5 years ago, and they showed that you could do rapid 3D printing of drones. So if you're like an operator in the field deployed and you say, I need this drone for this very specific purpose and I need it to carry this very specific pod, how do I have maybe like a little maker space where I can plug in those details and have it like spit out a drone for me? Another team did like wearable technology to predict disease outbreaks. That was in response to some of like the naval ships having COVID outbreaks and nobody seeing it coming, basically. So if we could equip every sailor with a little wearable, how could we see that coming and take care of it ahead of time and keep it from becoming more of a problem? And then I did like a software utilizing AI for talent management and personnel tracking. That might not seem like groundbreaking, but if you know anything about how the Air Force does talent management or even data, it's, again, in the 60s. So any way that you can bring that up and modernize it, my pitch was that all of these missions run on people at the end of the day, and people are consistently overlooked. And so how do we leverage those people by being able to measure them and find them and measure them by what skills they have? So if like you joined the Air Force and you were in this cool program, or maybe you went to MIT and you know AI, but maybe you're like checking IDs at the gate as your Air Force job, wouldn't we want to know that you have those skills, especially if we go into a conflict and we need to find those people fast to execute a mission? Okay, let's see. Oh, I think I forgot to mention the snowmobile. So the snowmobile was like our mascot because we were encouraged to not reinvent the wheel, but put existing solutions together to create something new. And sometimes that meant going out and finding what the commercial sector was already doing and seeing if we could leverage it and combine it with Air Force data. And so the snowmobile was our mascot because, right, how was the snowmobile invented? Somebody said, how can I get across this snowy field? I have a tractor or a lawnmower and I have these skis, right? Like, and they created the snowmobile. I don't think that's actually how the snowmobile was invented, but that's right, that's the idea. So how can we create something new by putting together pieces of old things? All right, so now, right, I'm really lucky I get to be at the MIT AI Accelerator that's here in Cambridge. What we do is we utilize the very smart researchers at MIT and Lincoln Lab, and we try to solve Air Force problems. So sometimes that looks like better weather prediction, better lightning prediction for Space Force launches. Sometimes that looks like helping with state-of-the-art AI algorithms to do self-flying F-16s or drone swarming. We have a lot of projects that deal with like fundamental AI, so like how can we make AI go faster, be more efficient, use less energy. So we have a portfolio of projects that we work on, and we're just trying to utilize the ecosystem here, and we're very lucky to be guests here on campus and be working with researchers here to apply that to Air Force problems. And I just think it's a really good model for how the DOW should be interacting with academia. I think there should be more of it, and I hope that we continue to get to do that. I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Okay, so recently, I just came back from a DARPA Service Chief Fellowship. So I got to go work at DARPA for 3 months and see how they do prototyping, technology transition, basically how they function, and how we could potentially get more involved and take those lessons learned from DARPA. So DARPA has about 300 programs. And when I got there, I was surprised. I thought that it would be mostly military, but it's mostly civilians. They take a lot of academic researchers or private sector business leaders. They bring them in and they say, you're a program manager. What problem that's gonna be a problem like 5-10 years from now and is a DARPA hard problem, what do you want to solve, basically? Just go out and try to solve like one of the hardest problems you can think of that's going to affect national security, right? Does anyone know what was DARPA's like claim to fame? What was their first? Yeah, the internet, yeah. So they invented the internet. Actually, it wasn't even like a DARPA program. They just got tired of trying to send data and communicate with academic institutions and the people they were working with, and they created the DARPANet, and that became the internet. They also are the originator of a lot of like the new X-planes that you see. So if you see cool X-planes working with NASA, that's usually DARPA. I put some examples up here because I think they're just, it was just really cool to see people working on these problems that look like science fiction. It's like what that actually exists. So I put the program name in parentheses, so if you wanted to go and like Google DARPA Air or DARPA cornucopia, a lot of times there's videos on them and you can go look them up and you know, it'll have a fun little interactive thing for you to look at. But one of the ones I worked on was Crane, so DARPA Crane. That's one where they removed the movable surfaces, like the flaps on an airplane, and they replaced it with directed air on the trailing surfaces. So they were trying to show that they could control an airplane just with directed air instead of movable surfaces. So that could be really important because if you're trying to like 3D print an airplane, you want to make it as easy as possible. You don't want to have to incorporate these movable surfaces. So that was a really cool program. They just put the wings on it, so I got to see it being manufactured. They just got the wings on it. And then they have like this directed air channel inside each one of these wings. And then you can kind of see like these little dots. That's where the directed air is coming out on the trailing edges of the airfoils. The other one that I helped with was called MASH. It was basically a way where the Department of Defense is really worried that if we're in a conflict very far away from our homeland and there's a lot of casualties, we won't be able to get medical personnel there fast enough, or we won't be able to get them out there quick enough. So how can we provide airmen, soldiers, sailors, the ability to control catastrophic bleeding and save some lives without like a medical person being there to administer it? So MASH was a way to figure out specifically if you could control catastrophic bleeding in the abdomen using artificial intelligence, like if you use, and I'm not a medical person, but if you put something in the stomach and it could sense what's going on and then treat it just automatically, autonomously. And let's see, another one that I helped out with was DARPA Air. So that is working with a cool unit down in Florida that has some F-16s that they converted to insert autonomy algorithms. And they're showing that you can fly F-16s without a pilot in it, which is a very hard problem because I think you've probably heard about trying to replace like commercial pilots with AI agents. But if you think about how would you do that in like a conflict when you're talking about like dogfighting or tactical maneuvers, that's a very, very hard problem. And so I think if you could solve that problem, you could, right, self-driving wouldn't be such a problem anymore, right? That would be an easy problem to solve. Another really neat one was it was drugs that you would take and then you would activate them using like a helmet using UV light. And so if you were a pilot and you wanted to be awake when you wanted to be awake, you would turn on the UV light and it would make you alert. But you wouldn't have like the after effects of being awake longer than you wanted to be, because when you didn't want it anymore, you could just remove the UV light and it would turn off the medicine, turn off the effects. So it's being able to like turn on and off effects of medicine that's existing in your body already. So yeah, that was pretty neat too. And then another one that I thought was just completely out there and crazy was cornucopia. They, using like a pack of kind of like seeds, they were able to generate food from air. So if you want to go up and look up DARPA cornucopia, you're basically able to like generate food from air just using kind of like a little pack. And then if you're curious, you can go on like IRIS or DARPA Connect, and you can kind of see what new programs they're coming out with. This might be helpful in the future if you go out into academia or whatever you're doing. If you're working for a company that wants to get involved with DARPA programs, that's what they use. They don't do any internal research themselves, and they don't do any internal manufacturing. They go out and they bring performers on their programs to do that for them. And so it's really up for grabs for whoever thinks they can solve that problem. So whether that's academia or the private sector. Okay. I think that's actually all I have. Yeah. Thank you. Any questions? They've got the microphone, so. I can repeat it because I heard you. What's my favorite airplane and why? Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. I should know the answer to that. I like them all. I think, have you ever seen like the F-22 demo team at air shows where they can do things that look impossible? Like they'll stop like midair and it looks like they'll go backwards. So I think the F-22 is probably my favorite, and it's just badass because it goes really fast. I also kind of want to give a cop out and say the T-38 because that's the coolest one I got to fly. And it's a trainer, and so you can just do fun things with it. But yeah, the F-22 is what I wanted to fly.
All right, we have another question over here.
I really want to be an astronaut. Do you know, like, what I should do?
Yeah, good question. Like if I knew what I know now, what would I have done differently? Kind of like if I wanted to be an astronaut. I mean, military is a good path, right? Like that's kind of the easy path. But I mean, space is changing, right? Like all these private companies are now starting to control space. So, you know, in the future, it might not be the stereotypical like NASA astronaut doing a lot of these missions. But for the foreseeable future, I think military is like a for sure bet. Military pilot, that's pretty easy. Like that's a for sure bet. But it depends on what you're interested in, right? So if you're not aware, they have like mission commanders, which are the pilots, and then mission specialists, which can be the scientists. So you don't need to be like a pilot necessarily. STEM degree. And then I think kind of what I said in the beginning, trying to you can become a specialist while also trying to be a generalist, if that makes sense. So try to expand the experiences and knowledge that you expose yourself to. And that's why I thought DARPA was really cool, because like I had no idea about medicine or medical projects, but you know, I was helping some DARPA programs with their medical programs. So I think it's really important to be able to talk to a wide range of things. Does that help? I don't know if that helped. Does that make sense? Okay.
We're going to go online now.
Gabriel, could you, is it? Okay. Gabriel, could you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for your talk. It was very inspiring to hear from you. And my question is, so at the beginning you were talking about how you failed out of pilot training. And I wanted to ask, what is your main motivator that keeps you going in times of failure?
Oh, good question. I think for me personally, it's like an internal thing. To be completely honest, it's kind of that feeling of somebody tells you can't do something and you say, I'm gonna do it harder, right? And so that's like, honestly, that, you know, from being a kid, like people would say, oh, I don't think you're not gonna be an astronaut, like that's impossible. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna be an astronaut, right? And I think that just kind of that motivated me for a while. I think now it's just the pure honor to be a part of these really cool things. And so I think the more experiences and qualifications that I'm able to get, it gives me those opportunities to do really cool things. I think that's right. I mean, isn't that what we all want to do? We just want to do interesting, neat things. And so I think that's my motivator. It's like, well, how can I amass these cool experiences and qualifications so that I could go work at DARPA one day, right? Because that would be pretty cool. And so I think, yeah, so I think at first it was just like a, well, I'll show you kind of motivation, and then it became like a, well, this is pretty cool and fun. I want to keep doing this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Could you unmute yourself and ask your question? Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Ainsley?
Sorry, I couldn't hear. I was actually curious, after you stopped your pilot training and you were moved to working on like missiles operations, I was like wondering, did you still feel passionate about your job even when you were working in a field that you didn't choose? And also, like, do you think that passion or that love for your job is important to the success that you've seen?
Yeah, good question. I didn't feel really passionate about the day-to-day because I was going underground. You're pulling alert for 24 hours. Like sometimes you don't have a fun alert. Like you just kind of sit there and monitor operations. But I think there's a lot of knowledge involved in missiles. So for very specific things that you do or emergency operations, you go to a checklist, you need to know what to do. And I think just that motivation of being good at my job and having that knowledge was my motivator. People would ask a question and I always just prided myself on knowing the answer or knowing where to find the answer and helping other people learn that as well. And so it was just kind of like still that like internal motivation to do well at whatever I was given, even if I didn't really like it. And then the like the people aspect to that, like trying to make other people better at their job and help them if they had a question or needed help with like an emergency operations or whatever we were trying to do. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take another one from right here.
All right, so while you were at like DARPA, you were surrounded by obviously a lot of like smart people, right? So what's like the trait on a team that you thought was like the most helpful to like progressing through your work and just like having a good team experience?
Yeah, and I think I see it here too at MIT. When I first came here, I assumed that, well, all the professors are so smart, they're never gonna wanna talk to me. But everyone's so open and friendly and like, hey, come learn about my program. Can you help me? Like, how can I help you? And I saw that at DARPA too. Most program managers, they'd say, oh, hey, do you wanna go grab a coffee? Let's talk about what you do and how you wanna help out on my program. And I think just that openness and not letting the fact that you are the smartest person in the building maybe, or in the country, not letting that like go to your head and still being open to working with people. And because I mean, that's where the real value comes from, when you find those connections and find people to help you and then you help them. I mean, it just makes the work that you do magnified by 1,000%.
Thank you so much.
After working with ICBMs, do you ever believe that there will be a time that mutually assured destruction won't be like not a big deal anymore because kind of sucks?
I don't think so, but I'm an optimist. I don't know how to answer that really. I think I'm an optimist. I mean, I see the controls and the care that is put into that enterprise, and it's not like just kind of loosey-goosey, like, oh, these are weapons to be used if we want to use them. I mean, I can't speak to the mind frame of other countries, I guess, and that's where the danger lies. But yeah, it's definitely seen as like, this is a deterrence. Like, this is not a weapon. I mean, even though we know it is, it's mainly, number one, a deterrent. Yeah. Does that help?
All right, we're going to take another question over here.
You mentioned that you failed out of pilot school, and I imagine that must have been a frustrating experience. What advice do you have for dealing with failure and kind of moving on from that?
Yeah, let's just keep talking about how I failed. Let's just like, let's just keep talking about that. I think it's like the stages of grief, right? And you kind of have to let yourself have that. I ran a lot, so like whatever makes you happy and feels like it centers you, like do that. So like I would run a lot, I did a lot of yoga. And then I think once you're kind of past that initial shock, like figure out what your plan is, right? Like I said, the Air Force was gonna offer me a new job, and I could have said, no, I just wanna get out of the Air Force and maybe go another path. And so I think like letting yourself have that time period to be like shocked and maybe mourn it a little bit, but then just sort of like recaging yourself and being like, well, I can't do anything about that. Like I can't do anything about what happened, so what am I doing to go forward? And I mean, that's hard because you can mourn that that's not a thing anymore, but there's nothing you can do about it. So you might as well just, what am I doing now?
Francesca, do you want to get online?
Fernando, can you unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yes, hello, I'm Fernando. First and foremost, I wanted to thank you for being here and for giving us your time. My question to you is, if you could tell your past self something when you first joined the Air Force, what would that be?
I think be more confident, especially if I had the expertise, like if I had experience or had done the studying necessary to speak intelligently on something, to not give up so easily when somebody would push back or brush that aside. So I think just having the confidence to maybe nicely push back a little bit and be like, well, no, I think you're wrong, and this is why. I think a lot of times, and I still probably do this too much. Like I kind of defer to the loudest voice in the room or the most confident voice in the room, even though I might know that they're wrong.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Francesca, one more.
Okay, Lashika, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes. So first and foremost, I would really like to thank you for just being here and sharing your experiences with us. And it's honestly really clearly seen that you have a huge passion for aviation, STEM, mentoring, and more. And you've also served in like these high stakes military roles like ICBM operations. And honestly, today, like these days, we've been like so flooded with advice to like pick something you love, but also make sure that it can sustain you. And with like so many options, I know personally it's really easy to feel stuck because I sometimes have like only like a vague, undeveloped idea of what I want. So my question is that looking back, like between the three different career fields that you've like gone through, how do you distinguish between a passion that's meant to be like a fulfilling side mission and something that's meant to be your primary career? And honestly, when your vision for the future is like still evolving, how do you find the confidence to commit to a path, even though you might not truly be sure that's the right path for you?
How do you tell what you're most passionate about? I think that's kind of what you were asked, your first question. I think it's helpful to ask your friends and family, to be honest, because sometimes they will see you light up when you talk about something, and they'll say, oh, you talked about that differently than you talked about maybe what you're just doing day to day. Like if you go out and get a discovery flight, for example, and you just can't stop talking about it and you're so excited about it. Like usually your friends and family can see that about you maybe better than you can notice that about yourself. But then also just try to be noticing that in yourself as well. Like, oh, does my mood change or do I want to tell somebody about this? Am I excited to talk about this? Oh, you had a second question and it totally slipped my mind. What was her second question?
My second question was, when you're not completely sure, how do you find the confidence to like commit to like a path or like a career choice that you think might be the right fit for you?
Yeah, I don't know if this is kind of a cop-out answer too, but I mean, again, like friends and family, mentorship is undersold, I think, especially when you're young. You think mentorship is like this official relationship you have to have where you ask somebody to be your mentor. It can be that, or it can be like an official mentor, but it can also be these unofficial mentorships, like somebody you look up to or somebody that's accomplished something you want to accomplish. Like just text them or have coffee with them or smoothie, whatever, if you guys don't drink coffee, Starbucks. But just like, try to pick their brain, and just being able to talk it out gets you out of your own head, I think, and I think lays out like pros and cons of different pathways that you might want to take.
We're going to take another
That's really
in-person.
helpful. Thank you.
Oh,
Sorry. We're going to take another in-person question.
Hi. So my question is two-parter. So the first part is, what do you think was like the biggest thing that got you that our DARPA fellowship? And after seeing like tomorrow's technology, all the new innovations, how has it changed like your perspective of the world?
Yeah, I think what got me that was what I keep saying. Like, I think being a generalist was really like a selling point, because when I hear a problem, I have a lot of different perspectives to bring to that problem, and I might make connections that other people wouldn't, like if you're just thinking about this one area. Like an example of that is biomimicry. That's one of my favorite subjects because, right, you're learning about biology and how animals do things, and it's like, well, how can we translate that to technology? And that's like led to a lot of really interesting technological breakthroughs. What's the most like interesting thing about DARPA?
What, like, how has that changed your perspective of the world?
Oh, I think like how quickly you can drive towards some of these hard problems, because some of these PMs will come up with pie in the sky ideas that are like, oh, you're never gonna do that. But they let them try, and sometimes they succeed within like 4 or 5 years, and that's technology that you might have thought was like 20 years out. And so I think they've assembled this really special like culture and team at DARPA to be able to get after those problems quickly. And I think that was just, it made me more optimistic, I guess, about technology, I guess.
So are there going to be teleporters anytime soon?
Maybe. Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll do one more question in the room.
You mentioned like a few different routes, like academia, military, and government, and then like working for a big company. So what would you recommend, depending on the engineering major, depending on the engineer, like let's say a mechanical engineer, for trying to get to the position you're at, or just trying to get involved in more like DARPA projects or things like that?
Yeah, I think if you want to be like engineer and very like SNT, like science and technology research based, like military is not for you. We do have positions that are like that, and this is my opinion, not the opinion of the U.S. Air Force, right? We do have positions like that, but it's not like you're going to work with the coolest technology unless you somehow get at DARPA or one of our top tier research institutions. And the engineers are sometimes kind of relegated to doing more of like acquisitions type work, like buying weapon systems. So if you want to do some of that really cool like hands-on technology work, I'd say like military is probably not for you. But you can work for do you know what an FFRDC is? Like a federally funded research institution like Lincoln Lab. So Lincoln Lab does work for the government, but you are not in the military, right? So you are still doing work that influences national security as a researcher. Like it's just as if you were in the private sector. Well, not private sector maybe, but like in academia. So that's a really cool opportunity. Like if you wanted to influence and work on some of the hard problems that like the Department of Defense has for the public to work on, that's a really good option. There's a couple of FFRDCs, including Lincoln Lab. I don't know. I think private sector, that's probably the thing I have the least expertise in, to be honest. I think you have to be willing to go with the flow these days, because a lot of companies are getting hyped up and they'll do really cool things and then maybe they'll crash, right? And you have to like switch really fast. So I think you just have to be aware of like what the landscape is looking like, especially with AI technology and new emerging technology coming out. That'll be interesting to watch. But I think already we see it where it's not like anymore you get a job and you stay there for 20 years, but I think it's going to be potentially more volatile in the future. But that could be really interesting as long as you know that you're along for the ride, right?
Hi, thank you so much for speaking. I just had a question. You mentioned that you were a generalist and how the Blue Horizon, if I'm right, fellowship, they taught you how to take existing solutions and implement them in like a different combination. How did you learn that? Like, I'm just interested in like learning how to do something like that as well.
So we read a book called Steal Like an Artist. That specifically talks about art, but it's applied to like a big picture way of it. Like, don't be afraid to steal good ideas, as long as you're not like stealing someone's patent or whatever, right? But when I think it's also constantly reminding yourself when you're given a problem set to not assume that no one else has worked on that before, and to go out and do that research first, because it's really tempting to like go heads down and try to solve that problem when maybe somebody else already solved it or solved a piece of it. And I think it's just kind of like doing your research in whatever you're trying to solve, if that makes sense. And usually that yields, good things. Like you don't have to do as much work, or maybe you advanced your work 3 months in a week, right? Just by taking what someone else has already done. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much for answering all those questions. At this time, I'm going to welcome down Maxim and Aisha from UAV to do a t-shirt presentation.
Hi, I'm Isha. We're from UAV, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation and sharing your journey about the Air Force. I really liked what you said about how you can still be a specialist while expanding your horizons, which I think is especially relevant since a lot of us are thinking about college majors and all of that.
Yeah, on behalf of everyone here, thank you. We're all honored to have someone from the Air Force down here. By the way, if you're ever looking for a pilot, I'm here all month. So.
Wait, what? Oh, thank you.
As a parting gift, we are excited to give you the BWSI 10-year anniversary shirt.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Oh, should we go? Thank you.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, you're all set. Can we just give another big round of applause for Morgan for coming today? All right, so virtual students, before we sign off, just one announcement is we did release the dashboard, so can you guys please keep an eye out for that for any updates we have on assignments or future seminar speakers. And then virtual, you guys can sign off. Thank you, we'll see you Monday. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.